Okay, I'm going to do a couple of EQAO problems involving parallel and perpendicular lines. And they also involve x-intercepts and y-intercepts. So the first problem I'm going to do, this one's easier than the next one. Find a line with the same slope as 4x minus 3y plus 15 equals 0, and the same y-intercept as 2x plus y plus 6 is equal to 0. So I'm looking for the equation of a new line. It's got to have the same slope as this, and it's got to have the same y-intercept as that. Because I'm dealing with two lines, I'm going to name them and label them so I don't lose track of what I'm doing as I do more work. So I'm going to say this is line A, and I'm going to make this one line B. So I need something with the same slope as line A. So let's find the slope of line A. So the slope of A. So remember, line A, and if you've lost track, maybe pause it and copy the question out right now. Okay, so line A is 4x minus 3y plus 15 is all equal to 0. I'm looking for the slope of this line. I'm going to put it into y equals mx plus b form. So I've got negative 3y is equal to negative 4x minus 15. Now, what did I do? I left the 3y where it was. I subtracted 4x from both sides to make it disappear on this side, so it's appeared over here. And I've subtracted 15 from both sides. That's why it's over there. Now there's a little trick. If everything is negative, you can rewrite it with everything positive. See, I could multiply both sides of the equation by -1, and that would make this positive. That would make this positive and make this positive. So what I really have is 3y equals 4x plus 15. So step by step, to get from here to here, I subtracted 4x and subtracted 15 from both sides. Then, to get from here to here, I multiplied everything by -1. Now remember that we're doing some algebra, so whatever we do to the left side of the equation, we do to the right. So these things that I've done here apply to both sides. And what you're seeing is the result after simplifying it out. Finally, y is equal to, I need to get y by itself, so I'm going to divide everything by 3. So y is equal to 4 over 3x plus 15 divided by 3. Now that I have y by itself, I can just read my information off. Remember, whatever's multiplied by x is the slope, so my slope, and we always use letter M for slope. My slope is 4 over 3. And my y-intercept, which we're not using in this question, but we've got it there anyway. My y-intercept is 15 divided by 3, which is 5. Okay, so remember in our question, we want the same slope as equation A. And I've just found that the slope of equation A is 4 over 3. So the first fact that I know about this new line that I'm looking for, so for my new line, the first fact is the slope. It's the same slope as equation A. My slope is 4 over 3. All right. Now let's look at the rest of the question. We want the same slope as A, and we want the same y-intercept as B. Though the y-intercept is got to be the same as this equation here, 2x plus y plus 6 is equal to 0. So let me find the y-intercept of B. So I've got equation B is 2x plus y plus 6 is equal to 0. And I'm looking for the y-intercept. All right, well, if I take this equation, 2x plus y plus 6, and I manipulate it to get y by itself. Now, how am I going to get y by itself? I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, and I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. So I'm going to end up with a y on the left and a minus 2x and a minus 6 on the right. Now that it's in this form, I can read the information off. I've got a slope. This line has a slope of -2. And it's got a y-intercept, and we use the letter b for a y-intercept of -6. So equation B has a y-intercept that's equal to -6. If you were to look at this real quick, you might be tempted to think it's a +6 because you see a 6 by itself, but only after you rearrange it into this form can you be sure. And when you rearrange it to get y isolated, it's the number that's all by itself, that's not being multiplied by x, that you know to be your y-intercept. Okay, so let's stay organized here. Our new line has a slope of 4/3, and our new line has a y-intercept of -6. Okay, so my new line, I can write it in y equals mx plus b form and take the two things I know to be true. I know my slope must be 4/3, so the m value is 4/3, and my y-intercept, my b value is a -6. So the equation I'm looking for is y equals 4/3x minus 6. So when the question was, find a line with the same slope as this and the same y-intercept as that, I found the slope of this by putting it into y equals mx plus b form. I got this slope here. And I found the y-intercept of that, again, by putting it into y equals mx plus b form and reading the b value. That's where we got that. And then we take our new line in y equals mx plus b form, put in the m value, put in the b value, and we're done. Okay, the next question is very similar to that. It's just a little bit trickier because the information is a little more hidden, and it's the x-intercept we're given, not the y-intercept. A line's perpendicular to y equals 2x plus 3 with the same y-intercept as x plus 3y plus 10 equals 0. Okay, so I'm going to label my first line in here. I'm going to call that A, and I'm going to call that one B. And remember, we need something perpendicular to A. I'm going to find the slope of A, and then we'll find something perpendicular to it. And we need the same x-intercept as B. So let's start out with equation A. Equation A is y equals, and if you didn't pause and copy the question, I suggest you do that now. Hit pause, copy the question. Okay. So equation A is y equals 2x plus 3. And I want something perpendicular to it. Well, when I look at this equation, it has a slope of 2. To be perpendicular to it, perpendicular means at an angle 90 degrees, it's going to have a slope of -1/2. If that's not perfectly clear to you, let me draw a picture. Here's a line with a slope of 2. A slope of 2 means if we go over 1, we go up 2. This line is perpendicular to it. And what's the slope of this line? Well, if I go over 2, I go down 1. So I have a rise of -1 when I have a run of 2. So if this has a slope of 2/1, the line that is perpendicular to it has a slope of -1/2. This rule always works. Whatever the slope is of your original line, to find the one that's perpendicular, you do 2 steps. You flip it over, and if it's, say, just a 2, not a fraction, just write it over 1. 2/1 is the same as 2. You flip that fraction over and you put a negative in front of it, and that'll always give you a line perpendicular to the original. So, going back to our original question, we want a line that is perpendicular to y equals 2x plus 3. So the first true fact that we have is that our slope must be equal to negative 1 over 2. Again, equation A had a slope of 2, so to be perpendicular to it, we have to have a slope of negative 1 over 2. So that's our first fact. Our second fact is it's got to have the same x-intercept as this. So let me figure out what that means here. We have to have the same x-intercept. We need the x-intercept to be the same as x plus 3y plus 10 is equal to 0. Okay, here's how we find the x-intercept. To find the x-intercept, you make y equal to 0. Here's why that works. On a Cartesian plane, if you have a line and you're looking for the x-intercept, the one fact you always know to be true on the x-axis is that the y value is 0. See, if the y value was above 0, you'd be up here somewhere. If the y value was below 0, you'd be somewhere down there. The only way you can be on the x-axis is if the y value is equal to 0. So I have this equation, and I have the fact that the y value is 0. Remember, what are we doing here? We're finding a line that has the same x-intercept as this equation. So if y is equal to 0, I'm going to copy out my equation of that line. It is x plus 3y, but y is 0, so x plus 3 is 0, plus 10 is equal to 0. That's a 0. So x is equal to negative 10. That's my x-intercept. Again, how do you find the x-intercept? You make y equal to 0. Why does that work? Because to be on that x-axis line, the y value, your height, has to be 0. If it wasn't, you'd be above, or if it was negative, you'd be below it. So my x-intercept is negative 10. Now, if my x-intercept is negative 10, that means that I have the point. I have the point negative 10, comma, 0. It also means this picture's backwards. If my x-intercept is negative 10, then that means that it would look more like that. We're over here at negative 10. So I've got the point x equals negative 10 when y equals 0. I can use that as my second fact. So I've got the point negative 10, 0. And that's the same as saying my x-intercept is equal to negative 10. Now I need the equation of a line where my slope is negative 1/2 and my x-intercept is negative 10. If it was the y-intercept, this would be super easy. Because it's the x-intercept, that adds just a little bit of difficulty, but not too much. So let's start out writing out that our new line. Okay, so we're going to find a new line. And this new line has to have a slope of negative 1/2, and it has to have the point negative 10, comma 0 on it. So for the new line to have a slope of negative 1/2, it's going to be in the form y equals negative 1/2 x plus b. I don't know what the y-intercept is just yet, but I do know that the x-intercept is negative 10. So what that means is when y is equal to 0, x is equal to negative 10. That's how that x-intercept works. So if I have an x-intercept of negative 10, that means that the point negative 10, that's the x value, 0 for the y value, is on that line. I can put those numbers in here for those and then figure out what b is. So my x value is negative 10, so I've got minus 1/2 negative 10 plus b is equal to 0. When the y value is 0, the x value is negative 10. That's what the x-intercept of negative 10 means. And I'm doing all this to figure out what b is. Here I've got negative 1/2 times negative 10. Negative times negative is positive, and 1/2 times 10 is 5. So I got a positive 5 plus b is equal to 0. Or rearranging that, b is equal to -5, which makes the equation of my new line y equals -1/2 x minus 5. Now let's look closely at this. We have a y-intercept of -5, and we have a slope of -1/2, which will bring us back this way to an x-intercept of -10. This line is perpendicular to y equals 2x plus 3. I'm going to go ahead and draw in y equals 2x plus 3. It looks like this. See how it's perpendicular to it? And it has the same x-intercept as x plus 3y plus 10 equals 0. Because if you were to do that one, you would end up with a, looks to me like a slope of -1/3. So that would be this line over here. And notice they have the same x-intercept.